Join Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, available to play in more than 40 states, including California and Texas. Download the Prize Picks app today, use promo code THEOD, and instantly get $50 when you play a $5 lineup. That's code THEOD on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Anajar and Levine.
Call 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733.
ESPN 1063.
WUUB Jupiter, a Good Karma Brands radio station. Huddle up.
66 Hitchx Vegas Flair. I'm one ready.
It's time to break down the boldest plays.
Let's go, baby. Boom.
Hardest hits. And the craziest stories from around the NFL.
Touchdown Tampa Bay. Fire the cannons.
This is Sunday Huddle with Colin Russo, presented by Hared Rock Bet.
The first Sunday of the new year, 2025. What do we have in store for us? Of course, some Week 18, close to playoff implicating football. Hi, everybody. Good morning on this beautiful Sunday morning over here in South Florida, downtown West Palm Beach, over at the City Place Studios. My name is Colin Russo. Joined alongside me, as always, is Cade Chumsland. It's Sunday Huddle, presented by Hared Rock Bet. Week 18, the NFL playoffs on the horizon. No better time to get started over on Hared Rock Bet. Go download it on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and get started today. Even if you're not the type who likes to bet a ton of money or is a sports gamble and put a ton of money into each game, bet as little as $1, put up to 20 legs in a parlay. In Week 6, a bettor in South Florida put $1 on a first touchdown score parlay. 5 different players that score the first touchdown in their respective games turned a $1 bet into $40,000. Did it on Hared Rock Bet. So can you. If you get started now, you can get up to $100 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not hit. That first bet can be a parlay. It can be the prop. It can be the over. Whatever you like to bet, any game you choose, you either win your first bet or get the same amount you bet back as a bonus bet. It's Hared Rock Bet. It's offered by the Seminole Tribe of Florida. Must be 21 plus and physically present in Florida. The wager terms and conditions apply. Concerned about gambling? Call 1-888-ADMIT-IT. So Cincinnati's playoff hopes are not dead yet, as they won yesterday on Saturday, Week 18 slated football, with the Ravens clinching the AFC North and the Steelers falling from the 5 seed to the 6 seed, with the Los Angeles Chargers still having one to play. We'll see if they could capitalize against the Raiders today and play for that 5th seed, which I think is fairly coveted, because whoever is in the 5th seed is going to play in Houston, comparatively to the 6th seed, who has to go to Baltimore, who is as hot as anybody in the National Football League. We'll get into all the playoff possibilities, who is playing for something, who is not, what are the big games to look for. Week 18, this is not as traditional of a great Week 18, because I don't think we have a win and in game for a division or something like that. So there's none of that. But there are going to be other teams that are playing here and there. Tampa Bay needs to win. Technically, both the Lions and the Vikings still need to win and playing for a number 1 overall seed and home field advantage throughout the NFC side of the playoffs. And then, of course, the Denver Broncos have a win and in scenario against the backups of Kansas City. Whether people think Kansas City will show up and play hard that game, it remains to be seen. But that is a game where Cincinnati and both Miami, their playoff possibilities and chances rely in how the Denver Broncos play against the Kansas City Chiefs at home. That is a 425 kick in that game. Cade, we got some games to look forward to, but I want to get your thoughts on this, because you're the Texan fan. The Texans are the 4 seed. They've locked up the AFC South. The AFC South stinks. They're 9-7. Now, they have a game today against Tennessee. Houston has not played well in the last couple of weeks, played good teams, but they haven't played well, especially that god-awful game on Christmas Day. You got a long week here. You don't necessarily need the game, but with Houston against the Titans today, and in my opinion, both the Steelers and the Chargers probably chomping at the bit for a chance to play Houston comparatively to Baltimore, does Houston play really hard today to get a good taste in their mouth going into the postseason, or is this a survive and advance. We'll worry about it when we get there.
No, you have to go in with some sort of positive mojo. You have to
And there's
find...
none. There's none for them right now.
No, absolutely not. We are in the depths of whatever darkness we have found ourselves in, and we need something to come into the light. And not only that, but the fact that we lost to this team. Sorry, I'm saying the fan in me is coming out so much right now. The Texans lost this game earlier in the season at home,
right,
to a Will Levis-led Tennessee team. So there is not one team more that I want to beat right now as a Texans fan than the Tennessee Titans in order to give us some sort of vibe.
But I like that. We need a
it.
positive. We need a positive.
Absolutely.
Find something. It doesn't need to be pretty. Win 20-17 for all I care. But some forward momentum would be important because both the Chargers and or the Steelers, whoever you play, I know the Steelers are trending downward, but that's in terms of the home games that you could potentially play on the AFC side of things comparatively to Buffalo or Kansas City in the divisional round or Baltimore. I'd rather get Houston 10 times out of 10.
I would too. I don't want to be playing anyone in the divisional round right now. Like, don't even give me Denver at this point. I think Houston is going to have to put on some sort of miracle compared to the way they've been playing in the regular season. And I think it all starts with C.J. Stroud. I said this yesterday when I was with Mike Rizzo on Saturday Tailgate, which you can hear from 9 to 10 a.m. on Saturdays here on ESPN 106.3. I told him, I said, C.J. Stroud is simply in his own head right now. And you said something at the beginning of this year, Colin, on this show. And honestly, you said it to me on the side as well, but that you were really nervous about C.J. Stroud with all the international travel, the podcasting he was doing with Micah Parsons.
He was worried about becoming a star off the field than he more was worried about becoming a star on the field.
Initially denied it. I said, no chance. This kid is way smarter than that. The coaches say he's brilliant with watching tape, staying inside the locker room. And I can't help but think that so much of this game right now for him is mental. He's missing wide open slant routes. It's not physical at this point. I know his offensive line is bad.
Something's not clicking.
Yeah, so much of it right now. You see him on the sidelines too. He's dejected. He's slumping his shoulders. There is something off with him right now.
They didn't deal with a ton of adversity comparatively, season-long adversity last season when it was sort of like a surprise campaign.
Well, when you have a number 4 seeded schedule, you can afford that. Mm-hmm. You can live with that. But now that you have a number 1 seeded schedule, the target's on your back right now.
The honeymoon's over.
And he has not handled it very well. I saw a line graph earlier this week. Since week 3 of his rookie season, his QBR has gone down consistently every single game. There is not one game where he has had a bad QBR and then he's backed it up with a better game. It is a straight downward angle on that line graph from week 3 of last year all the way into this season.
That is bizarre. But from that perspective, yes, Houston needs to play well today. Houston needs a win today because I think the Chargers are going to be looking to win today against the Raiders they want Houston instead of Baltimore. I usually favor on the other side of things that the NFL team doesn't necessarily care about who they play. Get in, get healthy. Those are priority A and B before you worry about who you play. Just get in, be healthy, and we'll worry about it when we get there. But now with a team like the Chargers, with a team like Green Bay, who has different opportunities to play different teams on the seeding side of things comparatively on the NFC. You know, Green Bay could play the Rams or they could play Philadelphia on the road. I think I'd rather have the Rams in that situation.
Or Tampa. Tampa as could be the 4 seed. You don't want to play them either in the playoffs.
Point being, seeding, I think, will have some consideration in terms of how hard these teams will play today. Week 18, there's not a ton of win and ins. All the other AFC teams are looking at that Denver game, and I think that Denver game is going to be a blowout. I do not think that Kansas City is going to come out of nowhere and some big surprise Carson Wentz is going to tear apart the Denver Bronco defense coming off a long week that is pissed off, looking for a win the worst way, lost 2 straight in dramatic fashion. They didn't necessarily play bad in either of those games against the Chargers on Thursday night and then against the Cincinnati Bengals on Saturday. They didn't necessarily play poorly. It's not like losing 2 straight like the Steelers have or 3 straight or like the Texans have.
Like the Texans, yeah.
They've played well. So they're chomping at the bit for a win. Get in. They play the Chiefs well. I have no shrivel of doubt that the Denver Broncos is going to come out, walk out of today with a win, and I'd be surprised if it was close. That was my takeaway with that game. And that's really the game that the Miami Dolphins, who have an outside-looking-in chance, and the Cincinnati Bengals, who have an outside-looking-in chance, that's what I look at with those teams. Those teams are waiting for Denver to lose. I think they're going to be waiting quite a bit because Denver, if Carson Wentz and all the notable backups on the Kansas City Chiefs take Denver down the field and Sean Payton, a Super Bowl winning head coach, and then beat them, they're no interest. They don't belong in any sense in the postseason. So there's that takeaway. I wouldn't necessarily hold my breath if you're a Dolphin fan, if you're a Bengal fan, hoping for the Denver Broncos to lose. They're desperate. Desperate travels. Desperate is dangerous, and the other team does not care. So not a very good formula for the other teams. But it looks like Denver will be slotted into that 7 seed. We'll see on who plays hard in terms of other games. The Rams are still playing for seeding, but they're going to have a home game regardless. Seattle, they play Seattle today at 4:25. There's some seeding purposes there. The Buccaneers need to win. They have the Saints at home. That's a 1 o'clock slated game. The Falcons, of course, had that flipped after the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost on Sunday Night Football 2 weeks ago to the Dallas Cowboys. All of a sudden, Atlanta gets slotted in to the driver's seat in the NFC South. What does Atlanta do? They followed up the following Sunday Night Football game, and they dropped that one in relatively interesting, ugly fashion to the Washington Commanders in game where the clock management drove me up the wall. I think Atlanta should still be in that driver's seat, but Raheem Morris has no idea what he's doing in regard to clock management, and he's completely lost with how he handled drives at the end of regulation, before halftime. What a disaster of if you're looking for a masterclass on how to screw up a game, look no further than Raheem Morris on Sunday Night Football against the Commanders. So now Tampa Bay is sitting in the driver's seat of the NFC South. They need to beat the Saints. The Saints trending downward. Buccaneers erratic, but trending upward. They got a lot to play for. I imagine they're going to ride into the sunset, into the postseason with that win. And the Falcons have the Panthers. I think they're going to roll over and die. There's not a lot of games that mean something today, and which is disappointing because there was a path for this to be a really great Week 18 of games. And outside of the Lion-Detroit game, the Lion-Viking game, which is going to be a great game, there is no doubt in my mind that is a high-octane, high-profile matchup that I'm going to get into. But both teams are getting in. I want to see somebody, it's like fighting for their lives on the football field. We don't have that this week. We don't have a winning in for a divisional matchup this week. A Rams-Seahawks, we thought it would be that. It's not that. We thought that there was going to be some implications in some of these games, and there's not, Cade. There's really not. And so it just points us that we're going to have to watch intently to see how the Chiefs show up against the Broncos. And then you're going to watch intently, of course, that Viking-Lion game. That is the end of it. If you're going to keep an eye on the Saints-Buccaneers and see if the Saints don't spoil the Buccaneers season, then yeah, that's probably the other one.
It's almost so unfortunate, and we talked a while back about how is the NFL just having is the NFL having a bad season? The NFL is having an unfortunate season because the schedule itself is not a bad schedule. Chiefs, Broncos. At the beginning of this year, you thought that the Chiefs would be fighting for the number 1 seed and the Broncos would be fighting for the playoffs. Well, we only got one of those this time, and unfortunately, it's going to be probably a blowout in one of the directions. You look at Seattle, Los Angeles. Could have been a battle for the division. Unfortunately, it's not. Minnesota, Detroit, we got exactly what we were hoping for. But even Washington, Dallas, I think that the schedule makers were hoping that would have been a big implication type game. There's so many other games on this slate.
Niners, Cardinals. People thought the Niners were going to be fighting for a seeding or something like that. Or maybe the Cardinals would be outside looking in.
Bengals, Steelers had a little bit to it, but not as much as we were kind of hoping for. So, and then if you look at the standings themselves, you're like, man, we are set for some great stuff. You got Denver, who's a winning in right now. You got a battle for a number 1 seed. You've got Tampa, who's in a winning in situation. This whole week 18 could have been completely different if Tampa Bay is playing Atlanta and Denver is playing the Los Angeles Chargers. Or Denver's playing Miami.
Yeah, that's a schedule maker thing, but yeah.
But again, those are all in division. Like Tampa could have played Atlanta, but we thought that Tampa maybe had a better chance against the Saints or something like that. There are so many ways this could have gone right, and it's just more unfortunate than I think of bad schedule making or bad play from the teams.
Yeah, it's tricky because if you're a schedule maker, how are you going to do this right? You make the schedule in May. How are you going to get it right? It's impossible to determine who's going to be healthy, who's going to be playing well, coaches are going to be still on their jobs, the whole thing, this, that, and the other. But the bottom line is a handful of games to look forward to in this Week 18 slate. Most notably, that Detroit Lion, Minnesota Viking game. Eyes are going to be on that Detroit Lion game and making sure the Dolphins can beat the Jets as well. Maybe they get lucky. They have the head up over the Cincinnati Bengals if they were to win today against the Jets. So the Dolphins still have a chance, but it all lies on if the backups of the Kansas City Chiefs can beat the Denver Broncos off a long week. I don't think so, but I would be floored if anything like that were to happen. But, stranger things have happened in the past in the NFL football. It is week by week in this league. We continue onward on Sunday Huddle, presented by Hared Rock Bet. Now, the aforementioned Detroit Lion Minnesota Viking game, we'll break down that game and determine who we think will win. Is there a flawed process with the NFL playoffs? Should this game even be a thing? Should this even be that much implication in 2 14-win teams in the NFL? Is this a problem that 2 14-2 teams are fighting for the difference of the 5th seed or the 1st seed in the NFC? Is there a problem with that? We'll get into that and more next. It's Sunday Huddle, presented by Hared Rock Bet on ESPN 106.3.
Live from the Anajar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios. Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Call 1-800-747-FREE. This is ESPN 106.3.
You've got so many chances to win big on Hared Rock Bet. Even a small bet can bring in that serious cash. All you need is $1 and a dream.
Unbelievable. They've hit the parlay.
Let's go!
Big payouts for every kind of player.
Hared Rock Bet. Roll with us.
Get up to $100 back if your first bet doesn't win. Payable and bonus bet up to $100, not a cash offer. Offered by the Seminole Tribe of Florida. Must be 21 plus and physically present in Florida to wager. Terms and conditions apply. Concerned about gambling? Please call 1-888-ADMIT-IT.
Hi, it's Luis Fonsi. What makes a performer truly legendary? How about being the #1 bestseller for 47 straight years? That's what Ford F-Series trucks have done every year since 1976. For generations, hard-working South Floridians have relied on Ford F-Series trucks to help grow businesses, communities, and families. A legacy of capability and technology. Ford trucks, perfect for South Florida. See your local Ford dealer today.
Business owners, are your employees driving you nuts? Is money tight? Or have you just poured your heart and soul into your business and now it's time to retire and just relax? At Transworld Business Advisors, they have buyers from all over the world ready to buy your business now. Call for a confidential conversation about your business's current value. 561-203-5121. That's 561-203-5121 or visit tworld.com today.
Hey Florida drivers, the holiday season is upon us. When celebrating, always plan ahead and know all your options. If you drink, don't get behind the wheel. Instead, designate a sober driver or catch a ride service. And if you are the designated sober driver, commit to staying sober. Besides, a DUI could cost you $10,000. Not exactly the best gift you could give yourself. Celebrate responsibly and remember to drive sober or get pulled over. This message brought to you by the Florida Department of Transportation.
Imagine a place where the sun is always shining, the drinks are ice cold, and the food is bursting with flavor. Welcome to Hurricane Grill and Wings, where locals and visitors alike gather to weather this storm we call life. You can escape here anytime you like. Today's forecast, hot, crispy wings with a 100% chance of frothy beers. Later, we're predicting big burgers and seafood tacos moving in. Escape the ordinary. Visit hurricanewings.com to find your nearest spot and enjoy a taste of summer all year round.
Kaiser University's flagship campus, the 100-acre residential campus at 2600 North Military Trail in West Palm Beach, extends Kaiser University's educational offerings to over 100 degrees in the heart of South Florida. Kaiser University also has an athletic program with 20 national championships, including the 2024 Women's Swimming and Diving Championship and 2023 football, lacrosse, and men's swimming and diving titles. Visit KUSeahawks.com for the latest.
The 2025 Defender 110 is here. Rugged, stylish, and ready for any adventure. And now you can drive home the Defender with 3.9% APR for 48 months. For well-qualified buyers, that's as low as $22.53 a month per thousand financed. Whether you're tackling the trails or cruising city streets, the Defender delivers. Hurry, this offer ends soon. Visit Land Rover Palm Beach or head to LandRoverPalmBeach.com for more information.
Punch right, Zach. 15 tip scissors. Can it to 300 jet F stick. X has got a quick high corner. Be ready to keep attacking.
This is Sunday Huddle with Colin Russo, presented by Hared Rock Bet.
Sunday Huddle presented by Hared Rock Bet over at the City Play Studios in downtown West Palm Beach. Colin Russo, Kate Chumsland with you on ESPN 106.3 up to 11 a.m. Today got a packed Week 18 slate of NFL football, a couple implicating matchups. We had one yesterday with the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, a game in which they won. And the Bengals now still outside looking in playoff opportunity alongside the Miami Dolphins, who have the Jets today. And if they win and Denver loses, Miami gets the slot. If Miami loses and Denver loses, Cincinnati gets the slot. And if Cincinnati wins straight up against the Kansas City Chiefs today, Denver gets in. So Denver controls their own destiny. Denver just needs to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, who are playing for nothing today on Week 18. The Kansas City Chiefs have locked up the number 1 overall seed. They have a bye regardless. They are starting Carson Wentz, their backup quarterback. So odds look slim for the two AFC teams with the outside looking in opportunity. But nonetheless, there is still a chance. There is still hope. For those fans, the Miami Dolphin fan, the Cincinnati Bengal fan, there's still hope. I would call it slim, but it's still hope. We continue onward here. Now, we got the Detroit Lion Minnesota Viking game coming up tonight. But I want to circle back to what happened yesterday. Yesterday, the Ravens in the early slate on the Saturday window locked up the AFC North. So they're going to get a home game. They locked up the division, got it over the Steelers. The Steelers, on the other hand, were playing for seeding. They were locked in they were at the 5 seed at the beginning of the game, and all they had to do was win, and they would stick at that 5th seed and go to Houston in that first round of the postseason. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, they lost. 19-17 final score against Cincinnati. Pittsburgh falls to the 6th seed, and now the Los Angeles Chargers just need to win today against the Raiders in order to get that 5 seed. Now, the Steelers, on the other hand, will have to go to Baltimore. Now, I bring this game up, the Cincinnati Bengal Pittsburgh Steeler game up, because Russell Wilson had some peculiar post-game comments that I'd like to address. Russell Wilson was asked basically about the offense and no flow, lost 4 in a row. The Steelers have lost 4 in a row, granted, to 4 pretty good teams. They've lost to Philadelphia, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Cincinnati. That is not easy. There is no doubt about that. But it hasn't been particularly close in a lot of those games. But Russell Wilson said yesterday that this is all in the past. Take a listen to Russell Wilson, Steelers quarterback, yesterday post-game with media availability.
I don't really want to talk about the past just because I think, we've been in that for a little bit here. I think the best thing we can do is get ready for the playoffs. It's a new season. That's the only thing that really matters anymore at this point, right? Is the reality is no matter, obviously us winning that game would have helped us in some form or fashion, but at the end of the day, when you go into the playoffs, everybody's 0-0, and you got to beat everybody anyway. And that's got to be our focus right now. It's been a tough few weeks, obviously. We thought we had a chance in this game. I love how we fought at the end of the game. Defense, like I said, made some great plays.
That's Russell Wilson post-game yesterday. Russell, he's still in pads. Oh, he's still in pads. It's in the past. We can't bring it up. It's in the past. This is a new season. Russell. You guys haven't scored above 20 points in 4 games. You've scored above 15 just twice. Russell, can we talk about the elephant in the room that maybe offensively there's a problem with this team? It's a new season. We don't like to talk about the past. Russell, it was 20 minutes ago. I understand the thought process that the playoffs isn't playoffs, and now it's a new season. Say that on Monday. Say that on Tuesday. On Saturday, right after the game, where the offense, once again, fairly anemic. You got to address it in some capacity. Russell, it's hard to take this seriously. It's in the past. What, are you never going to address it? When you lose in the postseason, oh, we're not thinking about the past. We're thinking about next season. Well, what about what just happened? Is that fair? I thought that was a little much. Am I wrong on that?
You could tell he was super embarrassed about the game, too. Did you see the one play where I think it was the end of the first half, he slid inbounds when the team only had one timeout left, and he's like 2 yards away from the out-of-bounds line, and instead of just literally throwing it out of bounds, throwing it incomplete, or running out of bounds, he almost purposely kept himself inbound with less than a minute on the clock.
Been a complete collapse.
He has played horribly lately, and the offense isn't clicking. Nothing on that team is doing well right now. The defense is holding on to whatever they can right now, but Russell is slipping into a bad zone right now, right at the worst time possible, and I think he is expressing his frustration, absolutely. But he's like the nicest guy in the world, so that's what his frustration sounds like.
Yeah, like the Steelers, 193 total yards of offense. You're going to have to address something post-game, Russell.
Against one of the worst defenses in the NFL.
Against one of the worst defenses in the NFL. You're going to have to address it, Russell. You're going to have to address something in the post-game. That's just like, listen, I understand. It's the media response. It's a new season. It's the playoffs. Everybody's 0-0. All fair points. But, dude, Russell, you're still in pads. You cannot be saying that. What about the game that just happened? You guys can't score. What's going on there? Give us an answer, Russell. I can't deal with that. That's Russell Wilson post-game talking about that Cincinnati Bengal loss in which the Steelers lost 19-17. Everybody knows the Steelers have a great defense. Everybody knows that. That's the constant. But that defense cannot keep them in every game. It's not good enough to keep them in every game. It's a good defense. It is not a great defense. Kansas City, Baltimore, Philadelphia. Yeah, the defense kept them drive for most of the game, but then it got out of hand. That Kansas City game got out of hand. You can't go drive for drive, and the defense didn't even play well against Kansas City. Baltimore had hung around a little bit. Philadelphia hung around for a bit until that Najee Harris fumble. The defense cannot be pulling all of the weight of the Steelers every single year. Last year, with Rudolph and Pickett and that, the carousel of quarterbacks that the Steelers had, they went 10-7. They're going to go 10-7 again with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. At what point can we start to address it that the Steelers are maybe the most ceilinged team in the NFL? There is a very apparent ceiling of what the Steelers can be with what they currently have. They have a good defense to a great defense in that range, and they're still trying to figure things out offensively ever since Roethlisberger left. Put that into perspective for a second. Roethlisberger left, 3-4 years ago? They are still trying to put something together offensively. And I don't know if this is a Tomlin question, if this is a management question, if this is a front office problem, that they just cannot put this all together offensively. Because defense, they draft well. They develop well. Guys want to go there. Guys want to play for Tomlin. The culture is not a problem. It's a historic franchise. Great fan base. What gives? Something is not clicking with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that is a team that will lose, probably handily, in that first round of the playoffs.
To the Baltimore Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens.
Again, first round exit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. When's the last time they've won a playoff game? 9 years?
It's been bad.
Along those lines
It's been bad. We go down the list. They had that terrible Browns loss. That might have been the last game of Roethlisberger's career with against Baker Mayfield. They lost that terrible game against Jacksonville 7-8 years ago.
In the divisional round when they thought that was going to be a blowaway kind of game.
And that was one of their best teams. They had Bell, Brown, Roethlisberger. They're ceilinged. I don't know if that's a good term for it, but there's a very clear ceiling that they cannot puncture to get to the next level. They're very good. They're always above average. They're never great. That is a problem with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're never great. Why not? Why not? I'd have to fact check this, but I'll do it anyway. Mike Tomlin has not hired is a key word, hired an assistant that has went on to become a head coach. That has been poached to be a head coach. I'm not saying that is something that is apparent in you whether that person is a good head coach or not, is whether they have a good coaching tree, but it has something to do with it. There's a reason that people are targeting all of McVay's assistants, and there's a reason that people are targeting all of Shanahan's assistants, even Belichick. There's a reason that those guys get poached. Andy Reid is an outlier too. So there's a reason that those guys, that people like the tree because they're coming from a system that they know works. I don't know if the NFL is sold on the fact that this Steelers system works. I think it's just the ultimate case of it's excellent culture. It's a coach that players like to play for. It's a blue-collar city, a blue-collar team, an historic team that knows how to run a defense. They draft pretty well, certain positions only, and they never have it figured out offensively. Seems to be the case again. The Pittsburgh Steelers just don't have it figured out offensively. Erratic. It's not going to win playoff games. It's not going to win you any Super Bowl, and that's got to be the goal at some point. That's what the Pittsburgh Steelers did yesterday. Russell Wilson said it is officially in the past, and he is no longer talking about it. What a cop-out with the media. I might steal that. After every bad show, after every bad day the rest of my life, what happened here? It's the past. We don't talk about the past. We're worried about it's a new week. That's your ultimate. There's your get-out-of-jail-free card. There's your blueprint. We continue on with Sunday Huddle presented by Hared Rock Bet. Colin and Cade with you on ESPN 1063. In terms of today, the Detroit Lions taking on the Minnesota Vikings. That is a 14-2 versus a 14-2 team, sitting amongst the top of the NFC, number one, and the top of the NFC North. Now, the way the playoffs are structured, of course, is that if you are a divisional winner, you get a home game. If you are not a divisional winner, you are technically a wild card, and you have to start the postseason on the road. Now, with the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions both sitting at 14-2, basically beating everybody in front of them, one of those teams is going on the road to start the postseason. Comparatively to Tampa Bay, who's going to be 10-7 and have a home game. Or the Rams, who's going to be 10-7 and have a home game. Is that a problem to you, Cade? Is that a problem that the NFL is structured like that? Because there was arguments with it with the college football playoff. There was arguments with it with the MLB and how they handled it. Home field is a big problem in terms of who gets what. Is this a problem in the NFL?
No, and everyone needs to chill about this. Really? Just because we made history this year doesn't mean we need to change the whole NFL bracket conundrum here.
Doesn't happen every year.
No,
Yes.
This is the first time we've had any two teams that have played each other with 14-win records. The first time ever. And last week, it was the first time we had teams with 13-team records when Minnesota played the Green Bay Packers. That was what was making history, and now we're making it again this year. Last year, Colin, in the entire, 14-team playoffs, you know there were only 2 teams that had less than 10 wins?
Yeah.
That entire AFC bracket was full of 10 and 11-win teams and 1 13-win team. This isn't like this is happening every week and we're just saying, oh, now we need to change everything.
It's been a pretty substantial lopsided year in terms of who's great. You're either great or you're really bad.
And we're looking at a 100-year history of the NFL where we have had some of the most lopsided playoffs and some of the most even playoffs. I remember years ago, I don't know why this was the first playoff example to come into my head, but you know when you have playoff examples where 3 of 4 teams from one division will fill up that wild card spot? I remember when did the Panthers make their 15-1 crazy run?
2015, I want to say.
2015, right? That wild card was also filled with Matt Ryan and the Falcons and Drew Brees and the Saints. You want to talk about a stacked division where you think teams shouldn't have been on the road for that playoffs? This happens all the time. We just had one wild, whack season. And the thing is, too, no one expected the Minnesota Vikings to be here. This was supposed to be a different team. Give me the Packers, maybe even the Bears at this point, but the Vikings were supposed to be the last team in this position just because we have one historic, insane run by one team doesn't mean that we upend everything that we've built for over the last 100 years and the last, 5-6 years that we've had this form of playoffs. It's absurd to think that we need to change this just because of this one game that we've got coming up.
And it's no guarantee, just because the records are close, there's no guarantee of an excellent game. There's no guarantee, and this is talking about the playoffs now. There's no guarantee that a team with a bad record will not show up against a team with a very good record in the postseason. It is, to Russell Wilson's credit, a bit of a crapshoot. Everybody is, in a lot of ways, 0-0 going into that game. If you jump back to last year, especially on the AFC side of things, when all those teams were flirting with the 10-11 wins, and the Texans, they dominated the Browns. It wasn't even close. And the Chiefs dominated the Dolphins. Wasn't even close. The Packers took care of the Cowboys. They dominated them, at least in the second half. And the only great game of that entire first round was that Lions-Rams game. And the Lions were 12 wins, and the Rams were 10. The Bills, they dominated the Steelers by 2 touchdowns, and the Buccaneers killed the Eagles in the first round. So 5 games were decided by 2 scores or more.
Even though everyone had similar records.
Even everybody had similar records. So assuming that whatever home team or I should say Minnesota Vikings, because they have 14 wins and they're going to be the 5th seed, there's no guarantee of anything. There's no guarantee that these games are going to be great or be terrible. You got to let it play out. Now, in terms of whether this is a problem or not, to Kate's point, this doesn't happen every day. Just because it did, that's just, you're going to have to deal with it. Win the game. You want home field? You have a problem. Don't call fool to the system if you lose today. You have no right. Win the game. You have had a great year, but you have an opportunity to get that 1 seed. All you got to do is win. All you got to do is win.
You tell either of these teams at the start of the year, hey, you have to win week 18 for the number 1 seed. They're both taking that.
Both taking that.
No one's going to be complaining about that.
100%. So do they get screwed a little bit because they have to go on the road? Probably. But that's the nature of being in a great division, and that's just, call it bad luck. Call it bad luck. Move on, move upward, and we'll see what you do in the postseason. And hopefully a team that, the 9-8 Buccaneers last year beating the 11-6 Philadelphia Eagles by 20-something points last year in the wild card round. It happens. It's not out of the realm of possibility. We continue on here with Sunday Huddle, presented by Hared Rock Bet. If you've been in a car accident, truck accident, or suffered a slip and fall, my friends Mark Anajar and Glenn Levine over at Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys are here to fight for you. They don't charge you unless you win. They work tirelessly to get you the maximum compensation that you deserve. Listen, they're the best in the business for the reason. Why settle for just any attorney? Demand Anajar and Levine today, because that's the Anajar and Levine difference. All it takes, one phone call to take back control of your life. Don't wait. Call for your free consultation today. That's 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733. Take back control now with Anajar and Levine. Well, Kate and I are going to go through what our records are on our Blitz the Book, where we take every game on the Sunday slate against the spread week by week. We have the records. We have the stats. We'll break that down and make our final picks in Week 18. Coming up next, it's Sunday Huddle, presented by Hared Rock Bet on ESPN 106.3.
Live from the Anajar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios. Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Call 1-800-747-FREE.